So after the United States invaded Iraq in 2003, I said to myself, I'm not going to stand for this anymore. I'm going to just sit down and not say anything. My teachers were very, very upset. They're like, oh, they're trying to threaten me, like they're fail me, hold me back. This,
No
that.
way.
Yeah. But I said, no, I'm not going to do it because I disagree with what this country's doing. I think it's wrong. And my father instilled in me a sense of justice from a very young age. He wasn't someone he didn't have a college education or anything like that. He's a hardworking man, a blue collar guy, but he always really cared about doing the right thing.
I don't think marriage, from the way brothers speak about it today, is like a weight. It's not a weight in your life. It's actually something that uplifts you and allows you to go next level. It allows you, by picking the right one though. Let me make it very clear,
100%.
pick the right one. Meaning that you should have, the brothers that are married, you should have a checklist of what you would like from a wife, man. Every successful man that I've met, Tom, that has good faith says, you know, if you choose the right woman by your side, like this is the person that is the backbone of your drive.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to open doors for you partially according to how you treat other people, right? You're not going to get anywhere by mistreating anybody, especially by mistreating the people who, you know, wiped your bum and changed your nappies and do all this.
Absolutely, gave you everything, really.
Everything that you got, like, comes through them. And I know they're not perfect and maybe they do things that, you know, are wrong, but Allah put that in your life for a reason.
In the confused world we live in today, the battle between purpose and doubt is continuous. Broken dreams, unhealthy relationships, false beliefs, lack of knowledge, failed businesses, or even worse, living with no purpose. Join us on a journey to the horizon, a near future where a better version of you lives. Let's have conversations that expand your horizon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Horizon Podcast. This is where we have conversations that expand your horizon. I have a special guest all the way from the US today, alhamdulillah. Brother Tom, how are we today?
Alhamdulillah, doing well. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, very privileged and honored to have you here, man.
It's my privilege. I was looking for any excuse to visit Ireland, and you gave me a good excuse.
Alhamdulillah. Well, I hope you enjoy yourself here. We had some sun yesterday, so happy days. You know, we don't usually have sun.
Okay.
Alhamdulillah. So, Brother Tom, can you just give a quick, introduction to yourself so we can get cracking, inshallah?
Sure. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu salam rasulillah. So my name is Tom Facchine. From an Italian-American background, though I should say I do have one grandmother who was Irish. Yeah. So I hope that gets me points with the home team. Grew up in New Jersey, the United States of America. Had an upbringing sort of between a couple different flavors of Christianity. When I became a teenager, I left the church and became more sort of agnostic or atheistic. And then basically went on a journey, I think, after 9/11, where I became very, very politically sort of active and interested in politics. And let me give the short version and I'm sure we'll get into stuff. So basically, I go to university, I convert to Islam at university, do some work, teach myself Arabic along the way, and then eventually go to the University of Medina, Islamic University of Medina, where I studied in the Faculty of Sharia. Graduated, came back 2020 during the COVID pandemic, and then I was an imam in a masjid in upstate New York, and then I started doing other things. Now I'm a research director at Yaqeen Institute. That's full time, and I also do other stuff. So that's the overall picture.
Lovely.
Now, if you're asking about sort of what was sort of one of the things that sort of led me down the path that I did, and this is appropriate to our previous conversation, one of the best things that I got from my father, who's still living, may Allah guide him to Islam, is a sense of justice. Like, my father instilled in me a sense of justice from a very young age. And he wasn't someone he didn't have a college education or anything like that. He's a hardworking man, a blue collar guy, but he always really cared about doing the right thing. And so even as a little kid, just hearing him sort of come home from work and he's like upset at like stuff that's going wrong and oppression and like, people taking each other's rights and things like that, he could never shut his mouth. He was never the one to sort of be quiet. And so he put that in me at a very young age. And so when, I sort of live in like a normal sort of American kid up until 9/11 happened, basically. So sports, video games, not really caring too much, no goals, no like overall sort of purpose for my life.
Yeah.
And then when 9/11 happened, something changed in me. and I started realizing that there's things that are really serious going on, and that I have a lot of sort of education to go through to figure out like all this stuff. So I starting to like read, like study things on my own outside of school, and like educate myself about history, about politics, about this, about that. And I very quickly came to realize that the United States foreign policy was a horrible and oppressive foreign policy. And this is I was like a teenager, like 15 years old. So I started trying to do things in my limited capacity, even as somebody who was just a kid in public school. So one of the things, I don't know if you have any equivalent thing here in Ireland, but the U.S. is very, very patriotic. And so we do like the Pledge of Allegiance every morning. You do
the assembly.
You do something like this?
The assembly.
They call it the assembly? Okay, so we have the American flag in every classroom. You stand up, you put your hand in your heart, and you say, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. There's a whole
training
thing.
You guys to be troops.
That's how they train. That's how they train you, right?
Yeah.
So after the United States invaded Iraq in 2003, I said to myself, I'm not going to stand for this anymore. I'm going to just sit down and not say anything. And my teachers were very, very upset. They're like, they're trying to threaten me, like they're fail me, hold me back. This
no way.
Yeah. But I said, no, I'm not going to do it because I disagree with what this country's doing. I think it's wrong. And at
this point, you weren't Muslim.
No,
right?
I had no even idea about Islam. I didn't even understand anything about Islam, but I understood that the Muslims were being oppressed by U.S. foreign policy, and I was very, very much against it. So I started doing that. Now, the other thing, our sort of community was a working class community, and that's usually where the military like recruits from. They're not going to recruit from the rich. They're going to recruit from like the working class, because they have certain benefits that they give you, like they pay for your college. And they do things like that. They
make it look nice and attractive for you to come in.
So here's what they would do. They would run a gym class, like physical education class, like every month. So they bring in the Army 1 month, they bring in the Air Force the next month, they bring in the Marines the next month,
Giving
right?
you a taste.
And they would have everybody do like jumping jacks and like push-ups and sit-ups, and like they'd give out like pencils and free things.
Special.
Yeah. And then they'd like have like, it would be free recruitment, and I'm pretty sure that the schools got money for it too. I think they got like a kickback
of course
from the government. Yeah, so it's like it's business for them.
Yeah.
So again, this is after Iraq was invaded. I said I'm not going to participate when they come and they run these gym classes. I'm just going to sit on the side, say nope, not doing anything, not a push up, not a sit up, nothing. Same thing. Teachers were like threatening me. They said we're going to suspend you, like whatever. I was like, I don't care. I'm not going to do it.
Held your ground.
Yeah, I held my ground. And I think when we're talking about youth, and we were talking about youth off camera, the ability to sacrifice and the readiness to sacrifice is an extremely important thing for all Muslims to have, but especially Muslims right now. Because the thing is that I realized that they make it seem like they're going to ruin your life. They make it seem like they are Ar-Razaq.
Subhanallah.
They make it seem like they hold the strings. Look at all what the Zionists are doing right now. So they make it seem like they want to dox you.
You don't eat without my say-so.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's how they control you.
Yeah.
But we don't believe that.
Absolutely.
Or we say we don't believe that, right? But are we acting like we believe that, right? I like to say, if aliens came down and they looked at you, would they actually be able to tell that you believe that Allah is Ar-Razaq? Or is this just like a word we say? You know what I mean?
That's something that I want the viewers to really just soak in.
It's major. You got to prove it. Like everybody knows the right answers on the test, but who's actually going to as we say in the U.S., proof's in the pudding.
Yeah.
Right.
We say the same stuff out here, man.
I don't know. I got in trouble a couple of times in the UK with my slang, my US slang.
You're all right. You're on Irish grounds. Don't worry, man. We're friendly over here.
So I just have to be careful. They tried to teach me some British slang when I was over there. So I'm gonna have to in it and what saying, bruv? Other thing. So you guys can teach me the Irish slang.
The Irish slang is a bit more heavy, man.
Yeah. Is it? Well, I'm game. But anyway, so this was something. So I They threaten you. It's almost like they got a conveyor belt set up, right? And this is we were talking about the entrepreneurial mindset, very, very important mindset, because you're independent as an entrepreneur. You're not dependent upon their.
You call the shots.
Exactly. So they like to keep you on this conveyor belt. You think that life is just get my grades until I'm finished, this school, and then I go to university, and then I get the job, and they make life seem so like cookie cutter.
Yeah.
Right? And like easy. All you have to do is play by the rules, don't mess it up, and you're going to ride it from this to this to this to this, and then you'll be fine. But what comes with that is control. Yes. Exactly. So that at any moment they basically threaten you if you step out of line and say, hey, we're going to kick you off this conveyor belt if you don't act up. right? So you have to realize, you have to be smarter than that and realize that they are not Allah. They are not Razak. They don't control the purse. They don't control Allah's rizq. That there's more to life than just the conveyor belt, right? So this was something that just, you know, coming up like was something that I experienced and reflected upon. And it actually ties into actually when I started getting into Islam as well. So when I got into, you know, I did end up getting suspended in high school for like my political activities. And they made it seem like, you know, again, this was going to ruin me. Like, we're going to ruin you basically. Because now you apply to a university, you got a suspension on your record.
Yeah.
You've got to explain.
Red flag.
Yeah, exactly. And I had people, you know, tell me it's like, oh, it's not going to look good or whatever. I said, oh, I don't care. I'm going to write my little 1 page. This is why I got suspended. I own it. I don't care. Like, it was for a good cause. And I did it. And I ended up getting full scholarships, alhamdulillah, to like good universities. And it was absolutely no problem. So then when I was at university, that was when I first started actually thinking about Islam. Before that, it didn't even register.
How did Islam present itself to you? In what form?
Well, here's the thing is that, you know, this was Arab springtime, you know, and so out of springtime, it was like seeing how the Muslims had something very, very strong that was inspiring their activities, that was guiding their way. You know, I mean, like you were talking, you know, we were talking off camera about your experiences, which needs to be its own podcast, by the way. Don't forget that. Yeah, book it, right? As we say.
One day.
But there's no people that can go through this except if you believe in Allah. You know what I mean? And even like the things that people say while it's going on, you know, it's just like, it's a force, man. It is a force. And I felt that. And I was like, wow, it's like these people have something. You know, what is it? Like, what's going on here? And
curiosity.
So, yeah. And so I actually had a Moroccan professor. I started taking some classes and stuff like that, and sort of getting a little bit of exposure to the tradition of different either Islamic movements. And I had one class on Malcolm X and these sorts of things. And I ended up going abroad. I studied in Istanbul in Turkey for 6 months. So it was part of an exchange program.
How was that experience, man?
It was amazing. It was 2009, actually, and it was absolutely incredible. I lived in a very, very religious neighborhood that was called Üsküdar, if you know Istanbul.
MashaAllah.
And I would walk to the university.
Was this in Istanbul?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would go to the university, and the university, you know, the students are like very secular and very like whatever.
Yeah.
And they knew I wasn't a Muslim. And when they heard the neighborhood that I was living in, they're like, uh-oh.
What are you doing there?
They literally told me they're going to cut your head off. I was like, no, that's not my experience. In fact, the opposite, like the nicest people I've ever met. People like, you know, you're in a foreign land, you're vulnerable. Yeah. You know, you don't know the language, you know, you don't know how things work.
You don't have support.
You're very isolated. Yeah. Like people there, mashallah, like even, and I spent 5 years living in Medina after that. Still, it's a close one, but I think the most hospitality I've ever saw in my life was in that neighborhood in Istanbul.
SubhanAllah. May Allah bless the neighborhood and the people that live there.
Yeah, it was a huge effect on me when how like I felt about Islam too, because like people like drop everything that they were doing to help you. And it's like it's like to pay a bill. It's like, all right, watch my shop. Let's go. We're gonna be together for the whole day, and I take you over here and I take you over there, and it's like, what do you need? So it was something that you don't really find.
How was that? Like you going through that transition of seeing a stranger or a neighbor stop his shop and put somebody in his place just to take you around and make sure that you're looked after. What was that like for you? Because surely you haven't seen that in the U.S.
No,
anywhere.
No, not at all. No, it was very humbling. People in the U.S., especially the East Coast where I'm from, it's like we're like, you don't bother me, I don't bother you.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, just don't mess with me and I won't mess with you sort of thing. We'll talk. We're sociable on the East Coast. Like, you know, if you're standing in a queue or something, you strike up conversation, but there's definitely like an individualism and like a private sort of thing. It's like, don't get involved in my business. So that was something that was very new to me. And it surprised me, but it also touched me a lot. So when I came back from my stay there, I was very, very close to like accepting Islam. And so it was like my last semester that I had to finish. And I took a class at the university on Islam. Okay, because you're a college student, you're a university student.
You gotta learn something.
What are you gonna do? You're interested in something, you take a class.
Yeah.
The problem was the class was really messed up. Right? It was taught by a non-Muslim in a very, very problematic way with a very problematic view of Islam. Okay. Now get this. The woman who taught the class, it was the idea of the class, I think, was called Islamic autobiographies. So it was different Muslims who wrote autobiographies, and that's the syllabus. One of these books, what the author takes the Quran and pees on it. Azakumullah. Yeah, right. This is a book that she's having us read in class on a class about Islam, and there's Muslims in the class, like that are students in it. I'm just the non-Muslim guy that's like
that's almost there.
It's almost there, but there's other people, and again, it's like the same thing that I've always sort of lived in my life. It's like that sense of justice. I couldn't let it ride. I was like, this is not. I can't stand for this.
Yeah.
So we get in the class, the next day, and we're supposed to like discuss the book or whatever. She's like to the class, so what did you think? The book. Everybody's silent. Nobody wants to say anything. It's like the elephant in the room, And I put up my
Tom's here.
I put up my hand. I said, I was really messed up. What he did to the Quran. That was very disrespectful, and I disagree with it. She said to me in front of everybody. She said, well, what do you think we should do? Issue a fatwa to have him killed? That's what her response was, referring to the Salman Rushdie affair, right?
Yeah.
So she right away went to the criminalization, securitization of Muslims. You're a terrorist, you're an extremist, or whatever.
Went straight to the extreme.
Straight to the jugular.
Yeah.
I'm not even a Muslim yet.
Yeah.
So if that's the hair trigger that they're on, then imagine if you're an actual Muslim, or if you're a practicing Muslim, or God forbid you have a beard and wear hijab, that's how tense it was. And so, subhanAllah, I was shocked. And at that point, from that point forward, me and her were very much like, button heads the rest of the semester. I ended up failing the course, and still, they threatened to kick you off the conveyor belt. I didn't ever think of apologizing. I didn't ever think of like whatever. If I eventually took the GRE and applied to grad school, master stuff, and I knew I'd have to write another page letter explaining why I got a 0 or why I failed a course. But
so you just have a bunch of explanations now.
I got a stack. I got a stack explaining myself. But that's the thing, right? It's like Allah gives you these tests. He puts things one in front of the other, and they see how you're going to act
to make you ponder and think.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, are you going to do the right thing, or are you going to take the easy way out? Right? There's always an excuse. Shaitan always gives you an excuse. That's the crazy. He always gives you a reason to not do the right thing. Always. And so it's this moment of sort of internal conflict where you've got to shoot. Like, yes, I could figure out a maslaha. There's always a maslaha, right? I could always figure out a reason to not do the right thing. But am I still going to power through and do the right thing anyway? And the crazy thing, and we were talking about this, is that it always ends up even better because Allah's in control. You know what I mean? It's like I still got into, I did fine on the GRE. I got into Master's Pro. I ended up deciding not to go for other reasons because I actually eventually did take my Shahada.
What year did you take your Shahada?
2010.
How?
So it was funny. So here, you'll like this. Yeah. So I started, this is like early internet days, like, not a lot of stuff is online. I look up how to pray. I start like praying, like just from like figuring it out.
Yeah.
So
you're on your own, basically.
I'm basically on my own. Yeah. I'm figuring it out. I mean, I had other people sort of like give me tips here and there, but it was largely just like trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
I fasted an entire Ramadan before realizing I had to take Shahada. Yeah.
Testing the waters.
Yeah. Well, I thought I was a Muslim at this point, but then it was funny. I graduated, moved back in with my parents, and I was married. Alhamdulillah, married young like yourself. I was married at 20. Had a child almost right away.
Let's go into that in a second. I'd love to hear more about you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think we're on the same page as that. Yeah. Bismillah. So
accepting Islam.
So I'm like, I think I'm a Muslim. Like I'm doing my thing. And
Fasted,
then I get a call from this old professor, that I had, and she was like, "Did you ever take your Shahada?" I'm like, "What's that?" So then she happened to be passing through in Philadelphia, and then like at some Islamic conference, and she's like, "Come down to the masjid, take your Shahada," and like whatever. So I did. Like Philadelphia is very close to where I grew up, just like 10 minutes across a bridge. So I went across the bridge. They took me down to a basement, like Shahada. Don't even remember the guy's name. No follow up. Nothing. Not a phone number. Nothing.
Oh my god.
Like, which is its own problem.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. At least the follow up system, man.
Yeah, but alhamdulillah, I was good at that point. I wasn't like my.
I mean, if you fasted for a year, you're technically.
I was ready.
Almost there, you know what I mean?
So that was my my grand Shahada story.
So
alhamdulillah.
So let's dive into moving past the education, Tom. I mean, getting married age 20.
Yeah.
You're a Muslim at this point?
I got married before I was Muslim.
Okay.
So before my shahada, I got married.
Okay, طيب. Why did you get married young, man? I mean, you're not a Muslim. Usually the non-Muslim mentality is, let me live life, let me enjoy myself until I'm like in my 30s, and then maybe I'll settle down, then I'll live with her a couple of years, then we'll probably get married. That's how, naturally non-Muslims think.
No, I've always wanted kids from a young age. Maybe it's the Italian, I don't know. But it's like I've always loved family, children, that's always been like something that was a huge goal for me. And so I just started early. I mean, why wait? I mean, it wasn't popular. It wasn't what people were doing, but I did it, and my parents supported it, and alhamdulillah.
You sound like the type of guy, Tom, since before you became Muslim, man. And I love this mindset. You look at the masses and you go the opposite direction.
Oh yeah, I'm very contrarian. It's got me in trouble a lot, unfortunately. But yeah, it's true. It's true. I've always been doing things sort of like different and standing out. For better or for worse. But Islam, the best thing about Islam is that it tempers that. So it takes like the good that you have and it makes it even better. Or it takes like if you have some quality in it and it rids the quality of like the bad parts of it. So definitely, I mean, I was one of those kids, especially I was a punk teenager. I thought I knew everything, arguing with my teachers. You don't know what you're talking about, especially once I got politicized and they were very patriotic. And I was like, America did this, America did that, But
guns blazing.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, so I haven't been afraid to do things differently.
Let's talk about this, Tom. So you get married, age 20. You have a kid, baby, quite soon.
Yeah.
Young father. What's it been like being a young father, man?
Well, this is, I think, you appreciate this, is that you grow up fast, and it makes you responsible. And when you're responsible, that's when things like crystallize and your perspective becomes sharp. This whole delayed childhood thing that the West does is a failure. You got somebody who's 34 years old, not married, no kids. It's so easy to lose your purpose. You know what I mean? If you're married young, you have kids young, you understand you got to start paying the bills.
You're a protector and a provider by force.
Exactly. And so it forces, it's like, it like puts a fire under you where you've got to hustle. You've got to make plans. You've got to figure out things. And especially in those days, they were very, very, I don't know, like they weren't comfortable days, right? So I accepted Islam and I had a degree, but it was recession. The United States was in a recession at that time. Nobody was hiring. I wanted to study Islam. I knew that from the beginning, but I didn't know how. I didn't know where I was going to do it. So I just started working in restaurants. I had already worked in restaurants before. I was paying the bills that way. And then sort of moved from one thing to another. But always trying to make moves. You make moves before they make moves on you. You know what I mean?
It's chess.
Yeah, it is. And also trying to just do things to improve your situation with Allah. You know what I mean? It's like I was in the restaurant. I was a head waiter at an Italian restaurant. I was making $300 a night.
$300 a night?
Cash.
This guy's cashing
under the table. Man. Yeah, exactly. But I as I became more strong in my faith, I didn't like the atmosphere.
Yeah.
People bring their alcohol, and then there's women, and they're trying to flirt with you and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it was like, at a certain point, I just had to look at myself. I said, this is not a good situation. So I quit.
Yeah.
I didn't even have anything lined up. I just quit. And I sat in the masjid for a couple of weeks and, just studying, and I was teaching myself Arabic at that point.
Can I just pause for a second?
Yeah.
You just said, I quit and I went to the masjid and I started studying. A lot of people, man, when they face a calamity or something that they can't continue doing, they go into limbo.
Right.
They don't think, okay, this is gone. Let me go into something that's going to increase my productivity levels, my knowledge, my wisdom, my education. So I really wanted to highlight that because that's a lesson in itself.
Yeah,
you're going through a calamity and you're tested by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, go use your time wisely.
Yeah. No, definitely. And alhamdulillah, as I told one of my sheikhs, I said I wasn't always doing the right thing, but I was always doing something.
Yeah, that's a statement.
So I had wanted to learn Arabic. I got tips from scholars and mentors about how to do it. I had a shoebox full of flashcards that I made for myself. That was before I started using the tech tools. Now it's so easy. I can tell people what to do if you want to learn Arabic yourself now. But at that point, I had a shoebox with big stacks of cards, rubber bands around them and stuff like that. I carried. I was so into it. But then I was sitting in the masjid, and some guy comes up. Someone I think he was Indian, and he was like, "Hey, I hear you're looking for a job." He's like, "Why don't you come work with me?" And there was right like that, halal income, back on my feet, like whatever.
Did he meet you in the masjid?
Yeah, I was in the masjid. Literally walked up to him. I was sitting in the masjid studying Arabic. Like while I was studying Arabic.
The amount of times that I have heard brothers that left an industry for the sake of Allah that find the opportunity next inside the masjid.
Yeah, wallahi. No, it happens.
Subhanallah.
It happens.
But with that being said, Tom, we're going to take a short break
Yep.
and we'll see you guys in a few moments, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Horizon Podcast. You know we have conversations that expand your horizon. Just a quick reminder, guys, go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Share this around. This is a positive impact, bi'idhnillah, on people around the world. Make sure you spread the message with Horizon. So, Brother Tom, we covered, your education experiences. We covered, transitioning into Islam, learning about the religion, and obviously 9/11 and everything happened in America. You get married quite young, starting a family quite young. And work. Let's speak more about work because I'm a preacher when it comes to work hard, play hard. Tell me about how was your transition with work? Like, what are some of the skill sets, soft skills, hard skills that you learned through your
being
experience?
a waiter was very important because it taught me how to deal with people. I'm naturally like very laid back and sort of introverted, but I still know how to deal with people. Yeah. Because you just have to deal with all sorts of people who are divas, people who expect too much, people who are neurotic or whatever. So that was a good experience. It also taught me to really, really hustle. I mean, I was working 10-hour, 12-hour shifts on my feet, moving all day long. You have to keep a lot of things in your head. So it was about, it was about time management. It was about drive. It was about sort of hustle. You really felt exhausted at the end of the day, Then the second after I said, I left the one job and then I sort of transitioned to this other, the brother had. I didn't stay there for too long because it was kind of boring. It was like an office job, something about like
not for you.
Import, export, like with chemicals and stuff like that. It just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So I think this is a thing that people can take with them, to always be ready for the next move.
Yes.
And to think proactively. And when opportunities present themselves to you, move. Don't be afraid of change. And there's even data that shows that, like, even within a sector, you get the highest pay raise when you change jobs.
When you upgrade.
Yeah, not just like staying put at the same place, which is what they try to get you into, this like security mindset. It's like, oh, everything's comfortable. Don't rock the boat. You actually have to make moves.
Absolutely.
Like, that's how it is.
Absolutely. I'm very against the cycle, man. When you're in a cycle, unless you see a clear career, a clear-cut career with a ladder right there, and point A, point B, point C, point D, time frames. I can get this done, promotion, so on and so forth. If you're just going in as the average Joe, you need to have a side hustle. You need to have something else that's generating cash flows, because the day will come where you're going to be responsible for something. Whether it's looking after your family and you need to pay the bills, whether it's looking after your wife, your kids, whether it's supporting the wider ummah, as we see today with Palestine. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for them and give them success. Allahumma ameen. Whether it's with an orphan from a different part of the globe that needs €40 a month to survive, like, you have a responsibility regardless. So hustle, work hard. Yeah, so actually it was funny. I did some volunteer work on a farm when I was in university, just to sort of like learn, just to learn farming. I don't know. I thought it was cool. And then I got an email at some point that basically that the same people who ran that farm, they were moving to a different place to start up like a new thing. Yeah. And they were looking for like first year workers. So I asked my wife, I said, what do you think? We felt stuck, like we were living with my parents, like, so it was cheap and stuff like that. But we feel like we want to spread our wings and sort of like move forward,
go out on our own. So we moved there. That was upstate New York. It didn't make sense to people who are like very sort of like necessarily career oriented. It's like I'm going from working at an office job to working with my hands. I'm in the fields 10-hour days. I'm working 6 days a week. It's like I'm doing everything. Seeds, greenhouse. I built a greenhouse my first year. Well, that was cool. I never knew it. Now, I know how to build a greenhouse, right? Know how to run a farm. If, all the tech goes tomorrow, I can live. I'll show you guys.
Survival skills.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can survive. You can actually produce your own food. So I did that. And subhanAllah, that was sort of like, I was doing that while I was teaching myself Arabic and getting prepared. At this point, someone had basically turned me on to Medina, and they were like, hey, you should really consider this. This is how you do it. Here's the application process. So I got my papers together. I applied for Medina, and I continued to teach myself Arabic while I was working on farms. And the reason I bring this up is because time is what you make of it.
Fact.
Is what you make of it. Like, when I look back, it doesn't make sense. Like, the math the math ain't mathin', as the young folks say. You know what I mean? Like I was working 10-hour days, hard labor, and I still put in
married and kids as well.
Kids.
Yeah.
Like I put in a half an hour before work, like crack of dawn, like after Fajr, and a half an hour after work every single day for like a year and a half, I think. And by the time that had me up to speed so that I finished the Medina books like on my own, I was ready, you know, for the time when I did go to Medina. I basically did the curriculum a second time, just like, you know, to put it on.
You know what, bro? Wallahi, fair play to you, mate. You know why? The amount of brothers that I hear, that statement, I don't have the time. Bro, what are you talking about? You have the same 24 hours as everyone else. You make the time, like you said, you make the most of it. Like you're talking about 30 minutes before work, 30 minutes after. That's 1 hour of productivity, not activity. Activity is just, you can be active for 10 hours and get 1 hour work done.
Yep.
But when you're productive, you're focused, you're getting the mission and the vision done.
And that's something I've found over and over different stages of my life. Actually forcing myself to have a scarcity of time.
Yeah.
Made me the most productive. When I had too much time on my hands, I waste my time.
Facts.
Right? If I fill up the schedule and fill up everything and overcommit, I'm an overcommitter. Everybody who works with me knows that I overcommit. You know, but like it forces me to be as productive as possible. So you know, this is a common thing because a lot of brothers that want to go overseas and study, they're like, "Oh, do I get married or do I wait?" So get married.
Do both.
Yeah, you do both. Yeah,
be study and be married.
Because I've seen the guys that go over there single and delay marriage because they think that they're sort of, you know, going to have more time. And they waste their time more. So they waste their time more when they're over there.
Not only that, man. When you're young and you're married, and both of us understand this, yeah. When you're young and you're married, like you're going out there, getting the job done, working hard, so on and so forth. You come home, there's someone there that you're responsible for, that you have to protect and provide. Not only that, but you have someone that is also giving you the things that you need as a man, the emotional support, the kind words. Yep. The dinner, the beautiful dinners where you feel like, you know, full stomach. I'm personally a food guy, man. Like when I eat, I'm good. You know, I'm a happy guy when I eat. So when I come home from a long day, I remember when I was young and I got married when I was 22, I'd come home from a long day, bro. Come home to a nice dinner, some good conversation, a nice cup of tea, and I'm just ready to go again. Yeah. I'm ready to get back in my grind, work again, learn some stuff, so on and so forth. But I don't think marriage, from the way brothers speak about it today, is like a weight. It's not a weight in your life. It's actually something that uplifts you and allows you to go next level. It allows you, by picking the right one though. Let me make it very clear. 100%. Pick the right one, meaning that you should have, the brothers that are married, you should have a checklist of what you would like from a wife, man. You know, the things that are super important, things are priority, things that, because some brothers, they'll say number one is beauty. I'm like, okay, if that's your number one, then that's on you. But just know that if her manners is not correct, if she doesn't come correct, if she's someone that overrides your decision-making skills, then that's your choice. You chose beauty first, you know, which beauty is important for everyone. But I'm saying have things as priority. I'll give you one example. For me, my mom was my world, you know, and I remember saying to my wife when I got married to her, I said to her, look, if you ever upset my mom, you've upset me. Like, that's just how it is. Like, I don't care what she says to you. I like, just be patient with it. I'll deal with it. If there's anything that ever comes up, I can deal with it. No problem. I know my mother. I know you. I can deal with it. But always do your best to make her happy. And if you make her happy, you automatically make me the happiest man in the world. And I swear to you, bro, she understood this from the get-go. Alhamdulillah, the relationship between my mother and my wife has been incredible from day one. And it's because you set the standards. You let the two most important women in your life know these are the things that I would love in my relationship between us. And they make it happen, alhamdulillah. So
that's major. And there's two things that I see in that are major. First of all, you know, how much power women have, you know, in rejuvenating and uplifting men. That, and we're not talking about fiqh and career, not career, whatever, but like, we live in a society that downplays that. We live in a society that makes women feel like the only value that they have is either by being attractive, okay, or by being some boss lady. Right. But seriously, to be able to, like you said, you work your butt off, you grind for the family, and then to come home, even just like something simple, like some nice conversation and like a meal, and it doesn't have to be extravagant.
Bro, sometimes it's a smile. Wallahi, sometimes it's such a genuine smile.
Women have so much power to make you feel like you're on top of the world, or to be your biggest headache.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's why the brothers got to be careful, because, you know, your wife is either your biggest asset or your biggest liability.
Facts.
Like, you know, you don't want to have, you know, out there, you're dealing with all the problems of the world, And then you got to come home and deal with all the problems of your inner world, right? And so, alhamdulillah, I could not do what I've done in life without my wife. I mean, and we were married, and then I changed religions. I accepted Islam.
Let's speak about that for a second, bro. I'm really interested to learn. How was her perspective looking into Islam when you became Muslim?
She was supportive, but obviously she was a little bit,
reserved.
She was a little freaked out because think about it, man. You marry somebody and they change their religion. That's like a big thing. So like all the stuff that we used to do was there was an adjustment period. Yeah. There was an adjustment period, but she was always very, very supportive. Even early on, she got me like back then, like the cassettes of Machete and stuff like that, like my first prayer rug and stuff like that. And honestly, looking back on it now, it's like there's no way I could have done, what I've done without her support. 3 years later, this is why I tell the brothers to be patient. 3 years later, she accepted Islam. And we had our arguments, and we did like whatever, and whatever. But we eventually kept on coming closer and closer and closer to a mutual understanding. And she was able to find a way to sort of like grow into it herself, like on her own, and not just feel like she was following me. She didn't want that.
It was more of an independent.
Yeah, and I
journey.
respected that. I didn't ever want like her to just like follow me into it, like just because I did it. Like I wanted it to be something that was for her, and I gave her that time and space.
Allah accepted it from her, man.
Yeah, I mean. And so, just going forward, man, it's like just having that support behind you, man. It gives you wings. Yeah. It gives you wings.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in the UK or you're in Ireland and, they sacrifice.
Every successful man that I've met, Tom, that has good faith, speaks about that. Yeah. Says, if you choose the right woman by your side, like this is the person that is the backbone of your drive, because every man has a responsibility in regards to how I see it. You need to be an alpha in your life. You need to be an alpha in your decision-making skills and how you operate and how your daily routine, so on and so forth. This woman, this amazing woman that you have by your side, has such a different role. Yep. She's not meant to be the alpha. She's meant to be the nurturer of the home, someone that keeps an incredible environment within the household, someone that looks after the children in such a manner that you will never be able to do. So on and so forth, that you both, if you understand each other's roles properly, you're a force not to be reckoned with. 100%. Like you are a team that bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you'll make it. Yeah. You make it very well.
What's crazy, and my wife and I reflect on this sometimes, a lot of times these days, people reduce like women's work in the home to just tasks. And then they feel like there's some sort of like nanny or something or some maid, it's like, I just got to do all the cooking and all the cleaning and stuff like that. But like what we sort of realized is that the most significant thing that women provide is presence. Like they fill a house with a presence. So it makes the kids feel a certain way. It makes the man feel a certain way. Yeah. Like everybody feel like you're like the most impactful person to how everybody feels.
Yeah, that's you're
crazy.
Right. Subhanallah,
that's like a huge
you're right.
responsibility. It's like the tasks like come along with it, but like the main thing is like how you're making the other people feel. So anyway, I mean, alhamdulillah. So long story short. So back to the farming. I was farming. I was in a situation. I was getting very low pay. Alhamdulillah, I was grinding, and then I basically switched to another farm, moved across the country for better pay and a better situation. In another farm, and that was also for the masjid. Here's some of the brothers got to listen to. So the first farm I worked at, the closest masjid was 20-minute drive away. Okay, and I only had Friday off, so I'm only getting to the masjid once a week.
You only see in Jummah, that's it.
Only see in Jummah, basically. Yeah. Which was okay, all right, but like I had it in my mind, I'm like, this isn't enough. This isn't good enough.
Yeah.
And so I'm already thinking, even before I have the how figured out, I'm like, we gotta fix this somehow. Sometimes not right. And so took the off season, which is winter time, off to look around, interview, do different things. Then I found a situation where we moved a block away from a masjid in a different
right state. Around the block.
Yeah, I could walk to Fajr every day.
Subhanallah.
Yeah, and
what a blessing.
Yeah, and drive 10 minutes outside the city for for the farm. And it was at that farm that then I was in a field harvesting lettuce one day, and I got a phone call. And then my one of my mentors said, "I see your name's on the list. You're going to Medina."
Allahu Akbar.
And so I sat down, I'm like, wow, I was like, my world changed then.
Allahu Akbar.
And so, I had to sort out,
So let's move forward now. We're going to Medina. Yeah. We don't want to get too deep into that journey, but coming out of Medina, did you straight away become an imam?
I did, yeah, because I had planned on staying there longer than actually happened because the COVID happened, and so everything kind of got cut short. I was able to finish the program, but I wasn't able to do masters there. Alhamdulillah. But so again, my wife, props to her. In my junior year, she was like, you know what? Just in case we don't stay here, why don't you, like, in the summertime, like, you reach out to some mosques and see, like, give some talks or whatever, sort of test the waters. And I did, and I had sort of a relationship with a couple of mosques. So then when we had to go back, I had a connection with Utica Masjid up in upstate New York. And so I started being the imam there full time. Like, I did my, what do they call it? You're not sequestering. When you're in the pandemic, if you came across the border, you had to do what? You had to
Quarantine.
Yeah,
Quarantine. I haven't heard that word in a while,
I forgot the word, subhanAllah. So I did my quarantine in Utica, like literally it was eerie, man. Like for all the times, I flew and crossed borders and get taken for questioning, whatever. When I came into DC on that day, it was like the airport, like nobody in the airport.
Damn.
Nobody working at the airport. Nobody standing at immigration. It was eerie, man.
Just walk through zombie land.
Yeah, no, it was zombie. It was crazy. So we went straight up to Utica, quarantined, and then after the 2 weeks, my first khutbah was the Eid khutbah, and then and then it was just like imam work from there. But that was still COVID time, so it was very strange. Like things were closing down and opening up and closing down, and it was very sort of unstable. That was actually why we started the YouTube channel, Utica Masjid YouTube channel, not because we wanted to be some sort of big shot on social media, just because we wanted to do something. We wanted to have an impact. And Allah humbles you. I always thought when I was in Medina, it's like, I'm not going to do all this social media stuff. I'm going to be the boots on the ground, brick and mortar, face to face, whatever. And Allah's like, haha, COVID. And then it's like, okay, I guess I got to readjust. Now I got to, so we started doing the online stuff because we couldn't do anything else. And then that took off. And then we actually saw how, I don't know if you guys play basketball, but sometimes the outside game sets up the inside game, sets up the post game. So we had like a presence. It started bringing a lot of people to the masjid and bringing a lot of converts in and stuff like that. So it was very, very interesting how it proceeded. It didn't work out at the end of the day with the masjid. I had some sort of, I had big visions. I've always been like a visionary, big ideas about what to do. And I don't know, maybe I'll take the blame and say I didn't communicate it well enough, or maybe it wasn't the right time or whatever.
Did you feel like you were limited on your vision when it came to the position of imam in the masjid, because it's a very fixed location, fixed community, radius?
Well, I told them coming into it, I said, look, if you hire me as imam, I'm not going to be the imam of these four walls. I'm going to be the imam of the city. It's a small city. I was like, I'm going to be going to the university.
I love that, man.
I'm going to be going to the mayor. I'm going to be going whatever.
I'm active.
I'm going to be making moves. I'm going to be connecting people. So don't expect me to be necessarily at the salah every single time. I'm going to be over here at this masjid, be over here at this masjid. And up front, they were like, that's what we want. That's fine. That's great. But it's hard to explain. If you don't have the messaging right, it's hard to bring the whole community on board with that.
Yeah.
First of all. Second of all, it's hard if you're the only guy.
Yeah.
Because then if you're the only person, it's like,
who's going to cover you?
Where's the imam? Yeah, exactly. And that's why the most successful masajid in the U.S. at least are the ones where they got 2-3 people.
At least.
Here's the day-to-day imam. Here's the resident scholar who's handling sort of the bigger picture. Here's the youth coordinator who's just focusing on youth. That seems to be a sustainable model going forward. Just
a question. This is your first time in Ireland?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to take you to the ICCI, which is our local masjid. We've had this masjid for about 25 plus years. This is where I grew up. Most of us grew up here. Quran school, an actual primary school. Everything that we pretty much know is there. And we have that, we have that system of youth coordinator, Quran school, this, that, the other. It's very, very organized in a sense where everybody has an experience and a very positive experience through the masjid, alhamdulillah. So I think you'll enjoy visiting the ICCI bi'idhnillah ta'ala. But Tom, let's transition now into, moving after not becoming the imam anymore. You transition into yaqeen, correct?
Yes. So at a certain point, I was like, this isn't really I feel like my wheels are spinning. I have this big sort of plan. It's not happening. Not everybody's on board. And I started doing stuff on the side. I started teaching tafsir with an online high school. That's cool. I still do that. But then I also started doing videos with Paul Williams and Mohammed Jalal eventually, the UK. And that sort of put me on people's radar when it comes to sort of, I think, what's my niche, right? Which is I have this interesting sort of background where I have political science background and I have sort of a Sharia background. So I've got degrees in both. And so it's talking about politics, talking about Islam and politics, building power, sort of community development and this sort of thing. And I think that put me on the radar for Yaqeen Institute. So then Yaqeen Institute reached out and they were wanting, me to write about a couple things. And that developed into basically full-time work. And so then I went full-time with them. And the rest is history. That's what I'm doing now. So I'm full-time research director for the Department of Islam and Society. A lot of stuff in the pipeline coming through. I've got a couple articles and blog pieces that are already written on the website. You can check it out. But a lot more is coming through the pipeline.
Give me the quick vision, bro. Where are you taking yourself?
Excellent.
With the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Right now, I want to articulate in the English language rules and guidelines for political engagement for Muslims. Now, and that has a lot of different sectors to it. So the electoral sector is just one. Right. That's the one that usually gets a lot of attention. But even with the activists, and I have a background, I used to be on the left, at protests and stuff like that before I was a Muslim. So I understand the activist space. I've never seen, and this has become very relevant in the last 6 months with Palestine. I've never seen so many Muslims and so many Muslim activists want to ground their activism in Islam. Before they were more secular, more nationalist, more communist, whatever. Now they're feeling the need to actually be Islamic about it. And so we don't really have anything in the English language that I can hand somebody and be here's what you got to consider. Here's what you should be considering. Here's the sort of things that you should consider when you're doing this. So someone's got to write it, and that's going to be me, inshallah. So this year I'm going to sort of work on that project. I've also got some sort of that part of my purpose here in Ireland and the UK is to sort of try to give it a survey of the English language sort of Dawah scene and the organizations that make it up, and to see what people are doing, how we can benefit from each other, what sort of notes we can swap. The UK part of the trip was very enlightening. I discovered a lot that we can benefit from in the US from what they're doing in the UK. I gave some ideas from some of what we're doing in the US that I feel like the UK can benefit from, and just sort of keeping that connectivity. Yeah, I think that we need more connectivity.
For sure.
Yeah.
May Allah give you tawfiq, bro, and allow it to become a success. Last question before we wrap this up. If you were to right now look at the younger version, the younger Tom, with all the experiences that you've been through, what's some key advice, that you'd give?
Yeah, I got two things. So, as history has continued to unfold, we've got more and more distractions. Yeah. Right? So, don't waste time. You really don't have time to waste. And that's hard, especially with all the social media. That's part of the reason I'm off of social media now. I'll do content for other platforms, but if you've got that app on your phone, it's just, they made it to addict you, man. They made it to addict you, right? So to scroll and to think, whatever, it's how many times you go in to check something and then 10 minutes are gone because you got distracted by this, by that, and the third, right? So really don't waste time. You don't have time to waste. And especially with Palestine and Gaza and what's going on, every second counts. I believe that firmly. And the second thing, and we were talking about this off camera, is just respect your parents, man. Respect your parents. I know you went through it a little bit. I went through a period 2 years as a teenager. I was a punk teenager. Disrespected my father a lot, caused a lot of hurt. And I still carry that regret with me to this day. We have a great relationship now, and it's totally fine. I'm hurting more than he is at this point, but that's how Allah wills it. You know what I mean? It's I've got that thing, and so you really do take your parents for granted. It's just facts. You just take your parents for granted.
And you don't understand it until you become a parent.
Exactly. Once you become a parent, you realize, and then you just got to humble yourself. So the path to least regret is just to, out of principle, before you can understand through experience, understand through principle that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to open doors for you partially according to how you treat other people, right? You're not going to get anywhere by mistreating anybody, especially by mistreating the people who, wiped your bum and changed your nappies and do all this.
Absolutely. Gave you everything, really.
Everything that you got, comes through them. And I know they're not perfect, and maybe they do things that, are wrong. But Allah put that in your life for a reason. Yeah, so you got to figure out how to.
And they're human, man. Like
you
and I. They're supposed to make mistakes.
Exactly. They're going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. Imagine if your kids treat you the way you're treating them because of your mistakes.
How would you feel?
Facts. So, yeah, just try to, just be patient with that.
Barakallahu feek, Habib Muna. It was a pleasure having you with us. I am very excited to continue to build our relationship. We are now connected lifelong, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakallah khair. For the viewers at home, You're still not subscribing, man. What are you doing? Subscribe. Come on, man. Share around. Let the brothers and sisters out there, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, benefit from all the, the amazing things that we're speaking about, the beneficial experiences that our guests have been through, and make dua for us, most importantly. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.